There it is. We're live. Welcome, everybody. We have no guest again. That's all right. I am going to do another one of those things where I go off the cuff because all of you spurred me on last time and gave me so much encouragement. So I really appreciate all of you. And you know what? I'm just going to shut up, play the intro. Let's get rock and rolling. Here we go.
Practicing Polyamory, real-life perspectives from the imperfect people of polyamory. The mission of the Practicing Polyamory podcast is to provide a platform for all of the real-life, flawed humans that practice polyamory so that we might all learn from one another and grow as a community. Enjoy the show.
All right, everybody. Welcome. It's a beautiful Wednesday. A little bit cloudy, a little bit humid. I actually turned on the AC today, but whatever. I'm here. We're going to have a good time. Quick reminder, we are doing 3 shows every single week, pretty much Monday through Wednesday, 2:30. So if you have any questions that you'd like answered on the show, any topics that you'd like to hear discussed, let me know. Shoot me a DM. Follow me on all social media platforms at Practicing Poly A. Let me know what it is that you want us to talk about. And as always, a reminder, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a welcome guest on this show. None of us are perfect. We're here to share as many imperfect stories as possible because I know that the more stories we hear, the more others will see us in themselves, and the more representation we have, the more we can strengthen our community. So go to practicingpolyamory.com, share your imperfect story too. Speaking of imperfect stories, that's actually what I'm going to talk about today is my imperfect story. So if you don't want to hear the boring details of my life, go ahead and just sayonara. We'll see you next week. It's Wednesday, so, we'll see you next Monday. But if you do want to hear some grimy details, I don't know how grimy they're going to get, but, if you do want to hear some details, here we go. I'm going to talk about my first Polyam breakup. So this was 2018 it was about give or take a year-long relationship, 10 months or so, whatever. And this was this was our first polyam experience. So it happened that we were at a party, Vanessa and I hit it off with this girl, and she was like, yo, you should go after that. And I was like, I looked at her like, what? I should do what now? She said, yeah, you should go after that. I was like, okay, if you say so. So that was kind of like our intro to poly, so to speak, right? Prior to that, we had done, I've talked about this in the past. We had done some swinging, but we had we had talked about polyamory, but we hadn't actually opened up completely to it. So this was like the first time that we were going to try this polyamory thing. It's more than just about the sexual connection, right? It's not swinging anymore. Now we're actually like, I should talk to this girl. We have a good connection. We have chemistry, obviously. And, she was telling me, go and talk to her. So I was like, okay, sure, no problem. So this girl was quite a bit younger than me. I think I was 33, 34 at the time, something like that. This girl was like 19. So, there was a pretty significant age gap, but whatever. There were, I say whatever, but it was one of the reasons, that age gap was one of the reasons why I found it difficult to, in some ways, take the relationship seriously, if you will, right? Like, I guess I kind of had an idea. I kind of felt like that relationship maybe had an expiration date before it really started, but I wanted to see what was going to come of it. There was a lot of mistakes.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something.
Yeah. Don't ever let somebody tell you can't do something. There's a lot of relationships that work that way. I've seen on the Facebook groups, people often ask the question, what's the age gap? What's the age difference between you and your partners? And, I've seen some pretty, significant numbers. I've seen 20 plus years. I've seen, 15, 17, 13, whatever. There's, these kinds of connections do happen. For me, I felt like, the age and maybe the maturity level, whatever, like it gave me the sense that, this wasn't something that I necessarily saw as a forever partner. But I still didn't want to limit myself. I didn't want to say, well, just because she's this much younger than me, like there's no way, there's no, I still wanted to be open to the idea that maybe, as we get to know each other, things will go really well. Who knows? Anyway, so Vanessa and I are living on the road at this time, and we are um, making stops back in California for, a couple of different reasons. And, whenever we make the stop back, I go to see this girl. We hang out, we do this, we do our thing, whatever. And so it was kind of like this comet slash long distance relationship type of thing. And during all of this, the last time that I talked about my life, and I told the story of that date that Vanessa was on that I barged in on, that happened during this time that we were on the road, and this other girl was the one that I was seeing when I came home, and Vanessa and I had split up for 3 months. This girl was the one that would come over and hang out with me and console me, all of that good stuff. So, we kind of bonded in a lot of ways because of the stuff that I was going through. I was going through some pretty difficult stuff, with Vanessa, and this other girl was there to kind of help pick up the pieces and things. But it was still like, I'm over here mourning this relationship that I'm fearful, that I'm afraid is ending, this marriage that I have that I'm afraid is ending. And so still it's tough to really, for me, it was tough to really say, well, if this one's ending, I'm going to put all my eggs in this next basket, right? Like that's not what I was trying to do. And it did, it still made it difficult to like put complete stock. I mean, maybe it's also the fact that I was reeling, right? That I was dealing with all of this blowback and falling apart of this other relationship, and I wasn't ready to invest all of that into a new person. Well, anyway, so Vanessa and I are split up for 3 months, and right around Christmas time, we decide to give it another shot. But in order to give it another shot, not in order to, but in the process of, okay, we're going to give it another shot, she takes a job in Vegas. And so here we are still living in the RV, and we move the RV up to Vegas. And so we're up there for about 6 months in 2018, from January till about June, late May, June of 2020 or 2018, all about 6 months. And Vanessa had found this event that she enjoyed going to at this bar, FITB, fucking in the bushes. It's an 80s night, so Britpop specifically, 80s Britpop. And so she would come back for her 80s Britpop dance night every third Friday, I think it was. And so when Vanessa would come home, the other girl would come up to visit. And so we would have these, weekends in Vegas, and it was great. It was fun. It was, again, this semi-comet, semi-long distance, like whatever it was. And at some point during all of this, I said that 4-letter word, right? I told this girl that I loved her, and I did, and I did. But as we all know, there's loving someone and there's being in love, right? And being a baby polyam guy, I was trying to figure out what all of that meant. I had always been the type of person that when I get into a relationship, I pour everything into it. I talked about this last time, how I just, not only gave everything of myself, but expected that in return, and, based my entire life off of what I was going to be doing with this one person. So for me to now be balancing 2 relationships was interesting, to say the very least. It was challenging in a lot of different ways. One of the things that I do remember was lying in bed with Vanessa one night and thinking about this other girl, and expressing to Vanessa how cool it was, how wonderful it felt to love Vanessa as much as I did, and still also love this other girl, with, very deeply, like there was a lot of love there too. And to have, all of that, to be feeling all of that love at one time for multiple people was just the most extraordinary.
I surrender to your will.
Surrender to your will, love. I love love. And it really was. It was just such a wonderful feeling, such a wonderful moment. Um, and so things were, for the most part, good. Um, there was a little caveat, shall we say, that, like I said, it was difficult for me to take the relationship too seriously, and so I think I think all in all, like in total, I think I broke up with this girl like 3 times. Um, we would I would tell her, like, this isn't working, like I because of this guilt that I have that I can't take it seriously or whatever. And so I was like, we shouldn't do this anymore. And then next day we're like still talking and flirting, and like next thing you know, we're, hanging out again, and things are like, nope, we didn't actually break up. Okay, so that happened, um at least a couple of times, where I would have these conversations, be like, it's not working, like I not feeling this for this reason or that reason or whatever, and we would just go right back to it. There was also the caveat, the added challenge, that Vanessa wasn't a huge fan of this girl. So there was that couple's privilege that came into play, right? And I wanted to protect my marriage. I wanted to, um, I put a hierarchy, unintentionally on my relationship with Vanessa. I put that one as my primary, and so when there was when I knew that, Vanessa didn't necessarily like this girl, it was like, okay, well, even more of a reason why I can't take it seriously, even more of a reason why I can't fully commit or whatever. And so, even more of a reason why sometimes I just feel like I need to break up with this girl. Um, Other mistakes that I made, I would often downplay the feelings that I was having for this girl when I was talking with Vanessa. I would tell her, yeah, no, she's cool, whatever, but like, da 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 da, da. Like I'm into it, but not really, but kind of, but not, because I felt like I had to protect Vanessa, and make her, reassure her that like she was number one in my life, and nobody would take her place and all this stuff. So I definitely fell into a lot of that couple's privilege, and didn't always treat that other girl like an equal partner, at least in her and my relationship. I definitely felt like I had control or power or whatever, and I didn't use it in a good way. So I share these stories, I share these lessons, because, as I mentioned in the intro, we're all imperfect. We all make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. When we're baby polyam folks, we're going to make mistakes, and it sucks that people get hurt in the process. It sucks that, I broke this girl's heart a couple of times. It sucks that, that people get hurt because of this. And nobody wants to be a predator, and I don't think that anybody wants to intentionally hurt people. But I know that we all enter polyamory and in our own ways, in our own methods, and nobody necessarily has the rule book and the know-how, and there's not as much representation in the media, so we don't always know what is expected in these relationships. Everybody, it seems like, who enters this relationship, especially if they enter this type of relationship on accident, um, everybody kind of has their own growing pains, and I'm sure a lot of people feel like they are exploring new territory and don't have a guide, don't know how to do it. So, I was there and made plenty of mistakes, and that's why I'm sharing them so that maybe you are out there opening up your relationship, and you can take some of this knowledge and not make some of the same mistakes that I did, or at least learn something from them. Anywho, all right, so what the heck was I saying? Couples privilege, all that good stuff, and she wasn't a big fan, and so it was getting to a breaking point. It was getting to a point um where Vanessa felt the need to essentially give me an ultimatum and say, it's me or her. And you know I- it's a tough thing to be put in that position, um and it wasn't that I didn't love Vanessa, and it's not that I didn't treasure her and want her, um more than this other person, or whatever. It wasn't that, I how do I say, it wasn't that I placed her below this other person. It was in that moment I finally realized that that nobody was going to force me to make choices. Nobody was going to put me in that position. Like I made this choice for myself more than anything else. And I want to say, in the letter that I wrote to her that I still have, that I said, it's not that I'm choosing this girl above you. It's not that. It's just that I don't want to be put in a position where I have to choose. And that was, you know, that was enough. That was essentially not choosing her. And so that was our second separation. That one lasted about a year. She left in May of 2018. She moved out, stayed, whatever. She moved out. And then I followed closely behind. We both ended up moving back here to San Diego. And yeah, we were separated for a year. And then um, this other girl and I don't know. We kind of tried to reconnect, but I think I was just in a place where I had gone through so much with her. I had broken her heart a number of times. I was heartbroken myself with my relationship with Vanessa ending, and I just told this girl, you know what, forget about it. Like I can't do this anymore. She was moving away anyway. I was like, it's not even. Let's just call it what it is. Let's just end it, and that's that. Um, so that was all in 2018. Kind of both of those relationships more or less ended. I mean, Vanessa and I, we didn't end, right. Like we didn't, like our whole relationship didn't end, but we separated, and it took a year before we moved in together again. And there was just a lot of things that we had to do to get there. This other girl and I, we for the most part never talked again. I think every once in a while there's a like on the Facebook or Instagram or something along those lines. It's about as much as the communication gets there. But yeah, I mean, some of the biggest lessons, some of the biggest takeaways really were about the things that led up to it. I guess it's all the couples privilege and the hierarchies that were created. The idea of, I'm transitioning out of monogamy into polyamory. I don't know how to balance these emotions that I have, this life balance of having multiple partners. Because there is something to that. There's an art, I guess. There's probably some people would consider it a science or a system, with Google Calendar or whatever other tools people might use. So there's some science, there's some art to it. There's a magic to balancing uh, relationships and feelings with multiple people that way. And I didn't do a very good job of it early on. Learned a lot from it. But most especially, I think one of probably my biggest takeaways. I'm gonna try to narrow it down to 3 big takeaways. One is going to be check your couple's privilege. As you are opening up your relationship, that I'm going to write this down so I don't forget. So number 1, check your couple's privilege. As you're opening up your relationships, you may be tempted to want to protect your primary relationship, if you will. And while I understand why, and it makes total sense, and I'm not judging you for any of that, there's a distinct possibility that it can be a poison in any other relationship that you might have. So I'm going to make this point number 2, which is treat the new partner like a human being. I mean, that goes without saying, but I made this mistake myself of, it's not that I didn't treat her as a human being. It's that, I maybe treated her as disposable because I didn't think that I could be fully committed, or I didn't think that, whatever my fears, whatever my hangups were, I did, I made this mistake of not treating this person as an equal partner to the relationship as me. So, big lesson number 2. And what would be lesson number 3? What would be lesson number 3? Lesson number 1, check your couple's privilege. Lesson number 2, treat the new person like a human being. Lesson number 3, I don't know. I think self-care is what's ringing in my head right now. When Vanessa and I were separated, I talked about this a little bit last time. When we were separated, I was drinking a whole lot. Trying to remember the name of the port wine that I was drinking. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it was a nice big bottle, fat bottle. It was like 1.5 liters, and I was probably drinking about 2 or 3 of those a week. Port wine, by the way. So that's like high concentrated, booze. Anyway, when I was going through all of that and drinking as much as I wasn't really healing. So when I say self-care, it's also give yourself time to heal. So, and allow yourself to feel the emotions of healing. When I finally put that bottle away, when I finally just said, you know what, I'm numbing myself, I realized that I was numbing myself and not feeling those feelings on purpose. So I put the bottles away, didn't buy any new ones, and I quit drinking for a little while, long enough to just process everything. And I remember, nights, days, moments when I would just break down and just let it go. And it was that allowing myself to feel the emotions, allowing myself not just to feel the emotion, but to release the emotions, to cry and scream into my pillow, to, beat my fists on the bed, to, whatever, like just to feel it, allow myself to feel it, allow myself to release it, allow myself to let it go, and practice that kind of self-care, radical self-love, acceptance of those feelings, of those emotions. They're normal. They're okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. This too shall pass is what I believe. So, number 1, check your couple's privilege. Number 2, treat that new person like a human being. Number 3, self-care. Allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to release. All right. That is all I've got for you all. It was pretty close to 30 minutes this time. 25. Woo! Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thank you, as always, to our live audience for tuning in. As a reminder, when we're live, you get no commercial interruptions, but the same can't be said for those podcast downloads. So if you want to avoid the commercial interruptions, be sure to catch us live Monday through Wednesday, 2:30 Pacific time, or sign up for our Patreon where you get access to our commercial-free RSS feed and support the show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, wherever it is you download your podcast. And if you haven't already, please leave us a review. We'll sincerely appreciate it. That is all we've got for you all today. Thank you all, as always. Much love, and until next week.
Have a nice day!
Thank you for tuning in to the Practicing Polyamory podcast. Would you or someone in your polycule like to be a guest? Sign up at practicingpolyamory.com and join the conversation. Please support us by subscribing, liking, and following us on social media at Practicing Polya by clicking any of the affiliate links on our website or by subscribing at patreon.com/practicingpolya.